I really do enjoy the covers of Pacific Comic Groos, but when Epic Comics reprinted them in the Groo Chronicles, they were recolored. What do you think about that? Hi, I'm Darren, these are my hands, and this is GrooTube, where we appreciate the art of Aragonés. Today, we're going to focus a little bit more on the works of Tom Luth, though, colorist on Sergio Aragonés' Groo the Wanderer. We're going to look at the covers of the first 4 PC Groos, covers and comics, that Tom was not the original colorist on, and we're going to compare them with Tom's recolored versions as featured in Epic Comics' Groo Chronicles. But before we get going, I just want to point out that my intent is not to put down the work of Gordon Kent, who colored the first 4 Groo comics. I just find the updated covers in the Chronicles so appealing because they're new, or at least as new as something more than 30 years ago can be. And they're different and they're vibrant. So while I'm very thankful that Gordon Kent covered these Groo covers so ably back in the 80s, today will be about noticing the differences Tom Luth made in updating these classic comics. So let's go. I guess I really just need these first 4 today. And I think I only need the first 3 Chronicles. Wow. Just looks so fantastic. The colors are really so vibrant. They stand out. The paper quality is great. It's really such a different experience reading in the Groo Chronicles versus the original publication. All right, here we are. Maybe this will be a bit better. So the first thing I guess I notice in Tom's recoloring of Pacific Groo number 1 is the warmth that his choice of the more orangey yellow brings in versus Gordon's bright yellow and pale yellow at the bottom. While both the orangey and the yellow complement the purple shadow in the background, I think that the darker orange, even though it's not that dark, helps to keep the background and allows Groo to pop out a bit. I think the choice of a white background for the title block sets off the title of the comic a little bit better and overall makes for a easier to discern and read cover and title. I did notice that in the shadow up here, some of the definition of the sword holding hand is lost. But I do like how Tom has made Groo's hair brown as opposed to just black with white background that we have on the Pacific Comics cover. I don't know how I feel about the shadow across Groo's face and arms. Maybe with the pinker skin tones over here, they don't come across as sickly. But there's something a little bit odd or off about the shadow color here, at least to me. Groo's jerkin is a little bit more orangey as opposed to the pinky orange that Gordon colored in 1982. And what's going on with the doggy down here? Instead of having a light-colored doggy with spots and dark ears, it's just a brown dog. I don't know, I might have to throw this out as not being canonical because I want to have Proto-Referto on the first cover of Pacific Comics Groo number 1. When I was ranking my favorite Pacific Comic Groo covers back a few months ago, Pacific Comics number 1 made my top 3. It's still a really good looking cover, although I think I'm a little bit more excited about some of the covers that we're going to be looking at coming up. So let's take a look at number 2. All right, check out this beauty. I really do like it a lot. Going from red to blue over here, well, it's certainly really different, and it excites me to see that. I think toning down the value in the color for the background allows the title block to show off a little bit better. And I think it was a good choice to go for red for Groo's name, changing that from the white. It allows it to stand out a lot more. Gordon Kent's choice on the original cover to use browns and muddy colors for the quicksand and the hillside makes sense, but looking at Tom's choice of a bright yellow background here and a slightly darker gray for the quicksand really allows Groo himself to stand out against the background. Something that I do think I notice on Tom's coloring here is that he has employed a subtle gradient across Groo's jerkin, and maybe his skin tones are a little bit less pinky, giving Groo more of a natural look. I think I mentioned when we were looking at the covers earlier that this crowd up here with the white clouds behind helped to create some sort of delineation between the title area and the excitement of Groo down here. But I think how Tom has done a gradient from the blue sky to the white to the clouds, and then has just used a solid color for some of the characters in the background here, I think that might even be more effective. Looks like the same color for the quicksand was used for the sheath of Groo's knife and for the scabbards on his sword. And again, there's a little bit of brown color behind Groo's hair with Tom's recoloring as opposed to Gordon Kent's here. I don't know. It just pulls Groo's hair together a little bit better for me. I think I like Tom Luth's version of this cover even better than Gordon Kent's coloring. Still, this is a nice cover. Oh, and look at Groo's blade. A little bit of blue there. Nice. Complementary with the yellow. Good stuff. Let's take a look at cover number 3. The Caravan. I love dinosaurs, and I love this story. Here we go. All right, Tom Luth, Gordon Kent. Kent's color always stood out to me as being a really nice use of negative space. By keeping the background white, it allows us to focus on the action that's going on here and see the characters that are going on. Tom Luth decides he's going to make it a nice red background, kind of a sunset type thing happening here. And instead of green grass, we've got the desert of the story. So, there's a plus for that. But I think Tom may have missed the mark just a little bit here, and perhaps Gordon Kent's coloring works a little bit better for me. Take a look at the title block. We've got a white background. We've got dark Groo. You'd think that that would stand out, but for me, when I look at these two title blocks, the title stands out way better in Gordon's version than it does in Tom's. I think just the gradient and the darkness, I'm kind of losing the detail in the G and the R over here. It seems like most things on the back of the dinosaur have changed color, and I'm not sure if it was for the better or for the worse. Take a look at this box, and then take a look at the boxes over here. I don't know, I think that we can see some of the detail better on this side. Yeah, and the detail on these barrels is great too. But I think we lose some of the detail from the carpet. I think that this big stone block just blends right into the dinosaur. I'm not sure if the spots on the back of the dinosaur's back come out so well on Tom's coloring, but I certainly do like the swords. I like the two-tone blues. I think this purple and this teal and this kind of putty seem to differentiate a little bit more than these guys over here. And while I don't like the white background for Groo's hair on Gordon Kent's cover, something looks a little bit too spaghetti-like on Tom's recolored version. But maybe that's just how Sergio drew it. I guess when it comes down to it, I'm torn between these two covers. I really do like the original, but I can see where there have been some improvements in Tom's version. Why don't I just say, good job, Gordon, good job, Tom. Chronicles number 3. PC Groo number 4. Yep, what are you going to do? Well, I guess there's no way of really avoiding it. All right, where's the title block here? I guess we can't do a comparison, but come on. I've always loved the flames in Groo's name up there. So good job, Gordon, for doing that. The skin tones, I was going to call him Conan, on Groo across the two comics, and even in the lady down here, they seem to be a little bit more natural on Tom's version. And I guess that's appropriate because this is more of a serious, perhaps a slightly more realistic version of Groo, whereas Gordon Kent's version of the cover is very pinky purpley in the top. Tom decides to keep it pretty much purple the whole way down, losing these peachy colors down towards the bottom, deciding to go with more red and orange for the smoke here as opposed to the purple here. I think it makes things a little bit simpler, and I think it works well. I like how Tom decided to give the castle that ghostly whitey blue color, along with the skulls over here and over here. It's neat to see the skull here, and perhaps this is more true to Frank Frazetta's Conan cover. I like how Tom has colored it over here. I'm a little bit unsure of what's going on above the skull on this castle here. Is that supposed to be a helmet? Is that supposed to be blonde hair? I don't think that's what it is. I don't know what's going on there. It's a little bit distracting. A nice differentiation though here as the flames come along. I think they just kind of blend in a little bit too much on Gordon's comic. I like Groo's blue blade over here. I like the lighter orange on Groo's jerkin. It allows us to see the cross-hatching that Sergio has drawn a lot better. Looks great to me. Don't like the purple gauntlets over here. It's probably just stylistic, but I prefer the traditional yellow and red. The hill, a little bit lighter, allows you to see some detail a little bit more. Choosing to go lighter colors on the bones and the skull makes them pop out a bit more, but deciding to go away from a flesh tone, or a pinky flesh tone, I guess, for the arm. And is this another skull? Is that a rock, a bowling ball? What is that? Just kind of blends those back into the background a bit more, and I think that's appropriate. Groo's lying in the grass on some sandy ground, perhaps. A little bit more variety in the color of the uniforms of these fellas sneaking up on him. A little bit of blue in the swords. Looks pretty good to me. Again, Tom has opted for a duller coloring for the sheath on Groo's knife, as opposed to Gordon's original colors. I don't know, maybe it's because it's new and I'm drawn towards the new that I prefer Tom's version. Looks really nice though. Again, I like the fact that the hair is colored in, not only on Groo, but on the lady here. I don't know, there's something about the white showing through in the background. Doesn't quite do it for me. Both really good covers, classic covers. I'm going to give it to Tom though for the recolor version. I like this a lot. And you know what? As much as I try to be objective when I'm looking at the art of Sergio Aragonés and the coloring of Tom Luth and Gordon Kent, a lot of this comes down to personal preference. It is a little bit subjective after all. So, as always, take my comments with a grain of salt. I love all this work. Sergio, wonderful artist. Tom, I think he's a brilliant colorist in everything that he does. Gordon Kent, also really nice. He's done some super work. Gordon was the original guy. You've got to give him credit for that. Well done. I enjoy them all. I love the originals, and I'm excited to look at Tom's recolorings too. Well, Groo friends, thanks again for spending a little while with me looking at these wonderful early Groo covers and the recoloring work that Tom did on them. Let me know in the comments where you think Tom got it right, or if you think he erred in any of his updates. Let me know what you think of my thoughts as well. Make sure you're subscribed and turn on notifications, because I'm going to be back again soon with some more GrooTube. Take care, everyone.